Hey guys, my name's Sam Grubb. This is my second session in the Village Hall, so it's really nice to be back again. I'm a illustrator, a graphic designer, an artist, and my work is largely freelance these days. I get to pick some really fun projects, which is really nice. I'll show you some of my work, just a few bits that I've got on my iPad, which is the main tool that I use. Anyone who watched the first session will know that I'm a massive Procreate enthusiast. That's the software that I use to do most of my design work. And this is the suite. I'm going to be using this today just to show us through stuff. So a lot of my stuff might be, say, album artwork for projects for various artists and DJs. I do a lot of kind of t-shirt design and stuff like that for different brands. I've just done a t-shirt design for a ramen pop-up, which is really cool. So we worked on this piece of artwork together, just taking some of their influence, Japanese sort of style artwork, and then applying it to t-shirt design. The main bulk of my design work is around these sort of characters. I first started drawing these monster characters maybe 5-6 years ago, and you know, they're kind of where I tend to go to these days. I enjoy using photographic backgrounds sometimes, or just building really busy compositions with them. This was a project for a restaurant that's opening up in Leicester City Centre soon. They're going to use that as a vinyl graphic in store. So it's really fun. I'm in a nice place where I get to, with a lot of my projects these days, I get to kind of pick and choose and use my own style, which is really, you know, a nice place to be at. But today I want to follow on from the first session we did, which was a character workshop. We were looking at simple shapes and how to build out faces and look at, you know, if you pick a nose from a set of noses, eyes from a set of eyes, lips from a set of lips, all of a sudden somewhere along the journey you're going to start to see characters really start to have this character and show you know, show these different kind of personality traits and things like that. So the last session was largely around faces and building from that sort of point of view. What I want to do today is follow on and just look at kind of bodies, forms, the shape of the character, the wider, you know, what is the character doing? Where could you see the character? What's the kind of setting? But we're going to look to build it up in the same way. So what I want to do is just start with some really simple shapes. So I'm going to share back to this. This is Procreate, and this is the suite for when we're drawing artwork. Hopefully you guys can see that. And what you've got is you've got a color palette here and a bunch of brushes. So I like to start, this is just a kind of a pencil brush, and I like to start with that, make sure that's the right size. Okay, so just when we're sketching, so all I want to do is just get a few banks of different shapes, and all they're going to be is a simple circle, a square, and a triangle. Okay, and all we're going to do is just do a little bank of some different shapes. Now, it's not absolutely essential that you have Procreate at home. This is just the way that I prefer to work. And I think sort of as the session goes on and you see the sort of thing that we're doing, I think you'll see how it really lends itself to this kind of process and character design and building up characters from scratch. And so all we're going to do is just give ourselves a little bank of different kind of shapes, you know, all roughly, when I say square, I'm just talking 4-sided shapes, you know, maybe a diamond in there as well. Maybe we do like a shape kind of like this. And then with the triangles, same thing, just give ourselves a bank of triangles to work with. Some a little bit taller than others. And these are going to form the basis of our characters. So it should be fun. Make some upside down shapes. Okay, so get warmed up, have a little play like that. And you can just use a pencil and pen at home. You know, you don't need to have Procreate to go along with this, like I said. But what we're going to do, we're going to need a bank of circles, a bank of squares, and a bank of triangles. And with this, we're just going to start building stuff up and putting them together. And so one thing that's kind of key here and gave me the inspiration for this session was I was away, I was in Budapest, and I went into a bar and they had the toilet doors for men and ladies toilets, and there was no male or female or anything kind of like that, or, you know, all it was a triangle like this on one door and a triangle like this on one door. And so simple as that. And what it made me think was all the men were pushing into this door and all the ladies were pushing into this door. And you can see almost how this triangle, even though they're the same shape, I've made this one a little bit narrower just by accident, but you can see almost how, you know, men have broad shoulders, women have hips, and you can see sort of the beginning of something interesting there. So these two triangles made me think I should do a session around this and kind of look at using simple shapes like this and how we can embellish on this and build outwards. So all I want to do is just start putting those groups together. So we're just going to start with different pairs. So we're going to do some circles and squares together. So I'm just going to draw those out. And you'll see as I go through this process how with Procreate, you can really move stuff around and edit it. I think what you can do is if you're just working with a pen and a paper, I think you can always trace, you can photocopy, you could scan and digitally recompose it on a computer. But you know, let's say we've got those. So there's some circles and squares together. Imagine these different layers of different bits of paper. And then what we're going to do is do some circles and triangles together. Think about our toilet door that I mentioned. And you can see how some of these shapes could become interesting. Maybe try one like that. Maybe try one like that. One like that. I think when I'm saying circle, triangle, and square, I think the main thing I'm thinking as I'm building these out is it's more just a shape with no sides, a shape with 3 sides, and then a shape with 4 sides. I think that's an easier way to, you know, to categorize it. So we've got our circles with squares, our circles with triangles, and what's left is the squares and triangles. So we're just going to whack those together. Think like this. Yada, yada, yada. Maybe try something like that. And then maybe a taller one with more sort of, maybe something like that's quite nice. Okay, cool. So circles and squares, circles and triangles, triangles and squares. And what we're going to do is just take these, and I want to pick out some ones that look like they've got some character and some nice line work. So straight away coming back to this after having my eye off it for a moment, the two that I kind of like, I think this one is kind of nice. I think this one's kind of nice. Let me get a different color just to mark these. I like this one. And I like this one. So what I'm going to do is, imagine we're at home, we could just cut these out, trace over them, whatever we're going to do. Procreate, I'm just going to select this. I'm just going to copy paste that onto a separate layer. And then with this, I'm just going to do the same thing back to the first layer. Take this little guy with me, copy paste, put that up there, and then turn that layer off. And now I'm left with these two. So what we've got now is a couple of shapes where we can have some fun. I might just run through actually while we're at this stage and pick a couple more from these sheets. So here, this guy looks fun to me. Looks like he's in a rush. Put that there. Back to this layer, and maybe we take this one as well. I should have had a bit more variation in the size of the circles. I've not been very imaginative there, but let's we'll carry on for now. I think that's probably a good tip. I think as you're going through this, maybe you could afford to have a little bit more variation than me, you know, go really big with some stuff, much smaller with others, see where you end up, because it's really about exploration. I think the first session that we recorded was really fun. I think when I look back at it, when I started drawing, I'll show you the work from it. I wasn't sure where we was going to end up. Where's the session? There it is. So this is what we covered last time, and we were looking at you know, just building shapes up and how different shapes can make up faces and what sort of character traits these guys took on. So we're going down a similar path with this. Let me just select maybe this one. And I think, you look at this, and even though it is a couple of shapes, we've just got to think, how can we stretch that out? What activity does it look like it's doing? So I've got these now on separate layers, which is really nice. I can just work on these one by one. And we're going to take some time to look at this. Okay, so say we take this dude here. And what I want to do is, let's make him a little bit bigger. Okay, so we're thinking like a stick man, right? Simple might be to do something like that. And I learned this trick when I was at university, just a principle that was when drawing children, right? If you imagine you've got 3 noses, I'm trying to do these identical so it's a nice control experiment. 3 noses and 3 mouths, right? And if you've got 2 eyes, say if I draw number 1 eyes there, number 2 eyes there, say, and then number 3 eyes. Let me start that again. Say if I do this guy super close together, this guy kind of where he was, and maybe this one with the eyes here. And you look at those 3 faces, right? Massive mouths. The thing is, if we draw circles around these just to give them a kind of a head shape, and you look at that, the one that looks youngest is this one, right? If ever you're drawing a kid, what you want to do is put the eyes wide. And even though, this looks more like a baby, kind of like a 5-year-old, whereas this looks like someone who's maybe got a mortgage or whatever. It's one of those guys who's got a big mouth and close together eyes, but you can see it rather, this looks like a little kid, right? And all it is just the movement of those eyes. Your eyes don't grow. So a baby's born with the same size eyeballs that OAP has. And the idea is that the head does grow. So if the eyes are a little wider, it's just going to, look a little bit more like a younger person. And just with the movement of those 2 dots, it can have a really big impact. And I think, that's something to bear in mind when we're working through this. It's an exploration. So there's no wrong answers with it. But maybe think about what we do and consider, what does that look like? So little things with this. If I say, for example, just put the arms on there, when I was at this point a moment ago, I was thinking, am I likely to draw the legs here? Or am I likely to draw the legs here? And I think if they're here, that to me looks a little bit more like, I don't know, he's a burly chested guy, maybe. Get some abs on there. It looks almost like with his legs there, that's where his frame should be, something like that. And then he could have maybe some big arms that hang down to the floor, something like that. Whereas I feel like if maybe we put his legs inside, it looks more like he's got a odd shaped body, kind of like broad, massive shoulders and spindly, pindly little legs, which look a little bit more, I don't know, maybe like a Martian or something, less like a human, with this kind of, I don't really know what this kind of part of the body is here, but you can see how I mean. Now that might be someone who's a bit more of like a superhero kind of type, something, I don't know. So it's interesting, right? I kind of like the muscly guy more than that, but just for the sake of moving forward with this, we can crack on. Then what we can do when we're at that point is think back to the first session and think about some of the simple shapes, what made up the faces there, maybe try out some different stuff and see what that does for us. But you can see, with these kind of the legs that come from this middle bit, I don't know why it's making me think of a superhero kind of dude, maybe with a cape, something like that. And I kind of want to just explore that sort of stuff. So let's look at the other shapes and see where we go with them and what they kind of evoke. So we've got this guy. I think when I brought him up before, I said he looks like he's in a rush. I'm not really sure how I get that, but hopefully you guys can see it too. I'm seeing him kind of facing this way. Maybe that's it. Maybe he looks a bit like there's a motion, going in this sort of direction. So just add a couple of movement lines there. And we're thinking about the shape of this body. And now, what could we do? If he's in a rush, we might just want to look at the lines and kind of think like a zigzag. If you think of people running, it's kind of like a shape like this. So maybe his legs are, that's it. Okay, so maybe he's running like that. And he's on his way somewhere with his big kind of anteater legs. You can see how I'm taking inspiration from this kind of shape here. His body's there. Even with this kind of archback where he's got a long head, I think this guy looks like he could be some kind of creature. And then his arms running, maybe one flailing behind him. And I think these are, I'm fleshing it out a little bit, but you can see with this line here, how it starts with just a simple stroke. And then from that stroke, you're going to be able to see a bit of a direction and where you could go, I'm thinking for the next one that we flesh out a little bit, Let's slow down when we get to that part of the process and we can look at some different ideas. Now, all of a sudden, he looks like he's dancing. It's kind of cool. I think about this a lot, right, when I'm drawing, and I think about cooking. And I think sometimes, like, I really enjoy cooking. And I think, especially like when I was a bit younger, sometimes I'd set out, I'd be sure on every ingredient that's there. I'd be thinking, like, okay, I like all these things, everything that I'm about to put together. But I wouldn't really have an idea for a dish. It'd more just be a bit of an experiment. And then, so I'd kind of get into it. And I think sometimes rather than setting out to cook a certain dish, especially, this is before I learned to cook at all. And I think sometimes maybe you're better off just kind of getting going, and then from there you can determine what something is, right? So I'd put stuff together. I remember one time I was making this chicken dish, had the potatoes on the side, and just impulsively thought to put the potatoes into the pan. And then I started telling my friend about it, who's a chef at his dad's Spanish restaurant, and he was telling me it was a certain Spanish dish. They do the exact same thing: make the little fried potatoes, put the chicken in the tomato sauce, and then put it all together. So I thought I actually created something quite nice with this. Like I said, 2 minutes ago, I opened it up and thought he needs to be in a rush. He looks like he's in a rush. But then all of a sudden, I made him a bit cool, gave him some hair, gave him the sunglasses, and it almost looks like he's dancing, maybe break dancing, kind of doing some performance sort of thing. So, feel free. And I think in this sort of character exploration, that's exactly what it's about. It's not so much about, okay, cool, I'm going to draw an alien and that's exactly what it's going to be. I think that's a really bad place to be in. I think you're better off just kind of feeling free, experimenting, taking a pen for a walk, and just seeing what ends up. Whilst I'm here talking about chicken and potatoes and stuff, I'm just doodling and seeing how things end up. Maybe we do like a swinging lanyard just to show some motion. There we go, like a name badge or something, do his little face on there. So I kind of like this. I think if I was to set out and draw a regular, a character just for my own sort of stuff, the monsters and the couple of little bits that I shown you earlier, I won't really end up with something like this, and it's kind of almost a practice that I've got away from a little bit, which I think you could get some really cool results looking at this and how it's come together. I'm going to give this guy just a little bit more detail as per what we did last time. Just a little low light. Doesn't want to play ball. Let's go there. And just, give him a little bit of shading. Maybe this is a session that we do at one point, just looking at how to shade and add one unique light. Let's see. Shade his glasses. All of a sudden, we've got a really nice sketch to kind of work on and move forward with. If we was working on some character dev, imagine some guys rang and said, "Hey, we're from a street dance society, and we we want to have some little characters designed for our workshops or something." You're onto something kind of nice there, some cool movement in it. But anyway, I digress. Let's keep going forward. So this guy, what's going on with him? Bit of a square head by the looks of it. I'm not entirely sure about this one. I think with this one, it's one of those where maybe let's look at some different shape arms. Get on the right layer. You can see, hopefully, like with this, how we're whizzing through Procreate and moving around and how easy things are to manipulate. It's a really nice tool to use for stuff like this. I feel like times where I've had sort of briefs where it's a bit more centered around character development and stuff like that, it's been really fun to use. So let's have a look. I was thinking about that first one, the muscle guy that we just roughly sketched out for a split second, where he had the long arms sort of dragging down by his side. I think about some of the Disney films where they have these big lumbering arms. So let's start with that. If we flesh out his arms here and just get those on there, I think these can come directly from this section here. So I'm looking here and I'm thinking, looking at it, that it kind of looks like this is the top of the torso. We've got the big, broad, flat shoulders. And then, a skinny little waist here, maybe for the abs kind of. So what I'm going to do is just take this down a notch and use this as the layer underneath our sketch. Let's do that. So if I turn that down to there, I'm just turning the opacity down and then create a new layer to draw over the top. I'm just going to flesh out some muscles on here. So if we start, try to keep things symmetrical. If you think bodybuilders, they're all very symmetrical guys. And one little tip that I give on the last workshop was I'm right-handed, right? So if ever you're trying to aim for symmetry, or if you're doing something where you need text to go straight across and kind of you need to make sure that you've got enough space for yourself, a good tip is to start with your left side And then you can, obviously, when you get over to the right side, you can see, what you're doing, and you can make it line up. And it sounds super simple, but it's a little trick of the trade that just, I don't know, it's good practice to get into. If you're someone who enjoys doodling at home, it's one of those things where it's a good habit, right? And I don't even notice myself doing it anymore, but then I've been doing it for that long that it's kind of just deeply ingrained in there. So it's a really handy one for when you're in this situation. So yeah, so we've got these kind of shapes. Let me just take that down a little notch. There we go. And I think what we're going to do, I might just, normally my instinct would be to draw kind of a, regular muscly human torso sort of shape, something kind of like that. But what I want to do is really work with this that we've outlined here, to make something a bit different. So let's just I'm just going to quickly draw a couple of fists on here. How would it be? I have to still think about this. I talk about my right and left, but here we are. So let's do it fist like that. Get rid of that little bit, make it a bit bigger there. Okay, so we've got big lumbering fists to be dragged around. Now here, I kind of want to work with this. So let's do that normal kind of pecs, what we'd expect to see there, but then let's bring this right in. Like that, okay. And then here, little, what's that, your collarbone, I guess. So with this, my initial thought was that this would make up the head, maybe we'd have the face in here. Maybe it still could. That's quite interesting. I was about to draw a head up here, but maybe that's like the muscly torso thing, the same. So with this, like I said before, it's kind of completely about exploration. All you want to do is just be free, walk the pen, just put some music on. One thing we used to do that I found really beneficial when I was studying was we're doing life drawing classes, which was really fun anyway. It was, good practice. But we had sessions where we'd do a different pose every song. And so we'd be playing a CD out loud. And every time it got to, the end of a track, the model would switch poses. And all it meant was that nothing was precious, and we were in this workflow of just bashing stuff out. And then there would be things that were half done, and you'd have one that was like, oh my God, it's so nearly nice, but we didn't quite get the chance to wrap it up. And but yeah, it was really good, and we just rattled through them. And then you look back at this massive bulk of work what you had, and you think, okay, cool, that's it's really something. So try and bear that in mind when you're working with character development. If you want to just have some fun and try to come up with a fun, silly character, just get out of the stage of trying to perfect things. I think 100 half-baked ideas is better than 20 baked ones in this situation. And I think just here, just from when we put the face in a moment ago. See, what I'd normally do here as well, probably worth stating, if this was a actual brief and I was working on character development for a project, I might, when I just mocked a little face into here just to make the point to you guys, I'd probably stop there. I think I'd duplicate the document and I'd carry on down the same path that I was going to, drawing the head up here. But I think for the sake of this, we're just being quick and easy and we can go over it. But there's no reason why you can't almost save your work halfway along the way and then explore two different routes. If you feel like you've already took steps 1 and 2, maybe doing the shapes and then putting the arms in place, there's no reason why we can't keep that as a base and then do the same kind of thing with that. So we take that as our base template and then just draw over the top of it, So let's just have a quick look at this guy. He's a bit silly. Kind of like him. I never really do this stuff with my own work. I'm so formulaic in terms of the sort of makeup of the characters, whereas all of a sudden he looks really cool. I like his big arms. Get rid of his abs there. Same thing. So I'll probably keep this one with the abs, right? But then I just want to try something a little bit different. I'm not entirely sure what. I was thinking maybe some ribs or something. I don't know. Try that, see how that looks. That's the other thing as well. You're going to start to see stuff where, if I just put in 6 lines kind of like that, what does that evoke? He almost looks more like, what's the word? Like a cockroach kind of, like with a hard shell, something like that. So maybe we could lean into that a little bit and give him like a little bee sort of tail thing, with a little stinger on it or something like that. Don't really know what he is. Maybe he's a hench weird bee. And then you draw, put some wings behind him. Yeah, it looks cool all of a sudden. See now, okay, one of those points in time. Pen's going for a walk. I'm up to speed. I'm not really thinking about what my pen's doing. It's just zigzagging. And here, all of a sudden, I've put these things in to be, they were going to be the background of the wings behind him. But as soon as I put them in, I'm sure you'll agree, they look more kind of like, sort of, are they antennas? What a bee would have. All of a sudden, he looks like some little annoyed wasp or whatever. So let's go with it. He's a bit of a brute. I'm going to give him some tattoos, make him a bit cool, whatever. Give him a mum one. Nice. What other kind of tattoos that people have? Some chain link, that would be cool. And then maybe a little beads around here or something. One on his hands he can have. Whatever. That's what he likes. Pay me as a bailiff. Bailiff bee. With a weird wide head, a little bit creature-like. But yeah, I mean, here we are. Look, I did not think I was going to end up with this guy here, but he's kind of a cool character. I think we can move, we can move forward with that. Let's try get a couple more. So this. Also, as well, I think one thing to consider, I'm opening this one, and it looks to me like they're facing this way, kind of almost with their back to us, right? So like one ear would be here, one would be here, here's their spine. Maybe that's because that looks like a mouth, I'm not too sure. But let's do something with that. So say they could be, maybe they're like reading a paper or something, right? Sat on a bench. Other arm, I'll draw it out anyway. Maybe the elbow's down there, excuse me, and that's going through there. And then, this is interesting. It's kind of a task. Same thing, I guess the legs would be through the body there. There's one knee, there's the other one. Bring that out there. And then kind of leaning in front like that. And then maybe sat on a little, like a deck chair kind of. So I think straight away we've opened this one up, and it doesn't look like he's facing forward, just, at a glance. So take a moment to look at it and try see some movement in it and see what's interesting. But here, and then we'd have, how would you hold a paper? Sort of like that. So you'd have your thumb kind of pointing inwards, rest of the fingers behind it, and then the paper would sit sort of, say, there-ish. It could be a magazine or a paper or something like that, right? So just going to do the same thing, turn that opacity down, and then sketch this one out. Let's go a little bit lower on that, just to there. Nice. So we've got the back of his head. Let's start with his shoulder there. It's a funny one because his shoulders are right up in his head, so I don't know how he's going to end up looking. It might be like some kind of whale thing. I'm not sure, but same thing. We're just walking the pen to draw that spine as well, because that helped earlier. Oh, we've got the chair there. Rookie error. Might as well draw that in first. Same thing as the what was the first one we did, where kind of ended up somewhere completely different. I think, don't be bound to anything with this. That's the biggie. I think just have fun with it. And if you can get into the habit of blasting these out quick, and you're just starting with some super simple geometric shapes, you can really get some effective stuff. Let's draw that in there. You can see I'm just being super rough as well. I think no point being too precious, because you can always refine and refine and refine. Get that in there. Kind of legs you got, one like that. Okay. The other leg, you can see it's coming through here behind the body, and then we can just see the foot of it there. Okay, so that's that. There's the back. Weird head. I need to work this one out. Oh, hang on, I'm getting something. He's a crocodile. Sort of crocodile guy, look. Don't draw crocodiles all that often. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a sort of a something like that. Dinosaur crocodile thing, spindly legs. All of a sudden, these legs look ridiculous. Drawing some crocodile with opposable thumbs. Nice. So there's the thumb. Think about, the rest of the fingers, like we ghosted them out. They're behind the paper there, right? And all we're going to do is get rid of them. I wonder what he's reading. Alligator Weekly. He likes the Alligators Anonymous, where they write him with their problems, love life problems. This is a tough one. He's got this arm that goes up into the side of his head. Maybe that's kind of a crocodile thing. You think they obviously don't have shoulders, do they? So maybe maybe that's why it was giving me a bit of a crocodile vibe. Draw this in. Just give the chair some simple details, just to let you know it's a chair. I think what we can do is look to just through there, put the body in, you know, you would, but if it comes to it, you know, we could shadow all this out and make it look like it's got some depth and stuff, put the little edges on there. Things like these are nice little details. I always think when I'm trying to draw a static object, you don't want to overcomplicate it with stuff that doesn't necessarily evoke what it is. So if you're drawing like a wallet, for example, it'd be kind of hard to make it not look like a little purse, like a leather purse or something similar like that. So what I'd go to is like a cartoon version. Think of like a coin purse, right? With a little metal clasp on it. That really looks like what it is. You know, it could probably do the same job for you in your cartoon. But it really looks like, you know, only looks like a coin purse. It doesn't really look like anything else. And then just for effect, obviously you could add a couple of coins and notes flying out of it or whatever. But I think with this, you know, you think of this chair, I could start adding all these details to make it look like one certain chair that I know exists in my house or whatever. Whereas in reality, something like this, just the slots in the back, everyone knows that's a chair, right? All of a sudden looks like a generic garden chair. So maybe that's it. Maybe, oh, that's a good idea. Okay, so this guy is, I've got it. I've still got to work out what he's doing with his head and his face, but I think he's on holiday. Oh, you know what? It might be human infested water. Let's see. Get rid of that little bit there. Give him a little cocktail. I don't know. Umbrella in there. See what I mean? So with a cocktail, you think first, what would you have in a cocktail? An umbrella. I could start putting all things in. Oh yeah, my favorite cocktail's got this, that, the other. All you need, slice of fruit, umbrella, and a straw, right? And then everyone knows it's a sparkly, fruity, beachy drink, whatever. Give it a big shadow because it's baking outside. Obviously, I'd fill all this in if we were properly mapping this out, but we're just having a little sketch today. Imagine all this is nice. And then, yeah, I just need to crack what's going on with his head. So I can't quite figure out where his eyes would be. Is it like that, maybe? That the line where his sunglasses would sit? Kind of a weird one. Can't figure out what angle we're looking at, but it's interesting. It's abstract. We're moving. Not only are we moving through different character types, we're moving through different art movements and inspirations and things like that. So it's all good. Back to front head. Has he got his little, maybe he's got a little bandana on. That's kind of what people have on their head when it's hot, right? So tie the corners. Bandana, same thing, right? So you might have a certain bandana, what you love, that you want to draw the colors of or whatever, draw the pattern from. People won't necessarily know what that is. If we're just trying to let people know, look, he's a sunbathing alligator crocodile kind of half man thing that's reading the newspaper and soaking his feet in the pool. On here, all I'd go for is like a simple kind of paisley pattern, you know? And I think I'd look for some inspiration on Google Images or something. And yeah, just put that out. And just, yeah, copy out the pattern, you know, same thing for the color, right? I'd find that really like sun-kissed blue or red or something like that, you know, just to show, yeah, it's a bandana, we know what it is. Or even like, you know, you might get stripes, kind of like the old, you know, the old-timey sort of cowboy or railway worker sort of stuff. Maybe something like that might do the same job. But for me, I'm going to go for a paisley number because I think, you know, if I properly filled that out, it'd fit in with my style kind of pattern making and stuff like that. With this one as well, I'm going to add a little bit of shade just because I do quite like where this one's going. You can see now, I mean, even for myself, right, I'm having a real moment where I'm thinking I tend to draw the same things over and over. I really stick rigidly to like certain rules or certain, you know, I just fall into the same places. And I think just starting off with an exploration like this, something where you don't know where you're going to end up, you know, and it is just an exercise. You think we've been on this call now for say 33 minutes and I didn't think we'd end up somewhere here. I might end up taking this out and kind of illustrating it and just working on it. But it really is just those initial steps of putting together those 1-2 little primary shapes. And then I think being fluid as you go through is absolutely key. Like the decision that, you know, this dude would be facing in this direction is been key here. You look at the whole composition with the pool and we could really have some fun and draw some different stuff going on in the pool here, you know. Carry it out, maybe, I don't know, along there, what sort of angle would it be? Maybe like there, whatever, diving board, stuff like that. Put that sort of thing in there. I love this. But we've got a really exciting composition, you know, it's I never worked like this, and it was all based off just a couple of decisions to be fluid and kind of like thinking, okay, it's facing that way. All of a sudden, he's got a crocodile head. That's kind of his character. I just didn't end up drawing feet, and then just for a split second, when we drew the sea, it looked kind of like they were, submerged in the water. And then yeah, like just drawing a bit of a chair, and you can see there how long that took. Maybe this one was 5 minutes, something like that, maybe a little more. And what we've got is the basis of a really fun composition. I think not only is it a nice character, it's a fun composition. It could be, I think there could be some humor in this as well. If it was something like beware humans or something, stay out of pool, or I don't know, human infested water or something along those lines. I think that'd be really great. But yeah, that's my Amazon delivery. So hopefully I can run down and grab the Amazon man. I think that brings us to the end of the session. I think you can see there how simple shapes can be put together to make a really nice composition and give us a good jumping off point for some character design. My name's Sam Grubb. I think my socials are going to be added. If you guys want to follow along or see my kind of work or shoot me any messages or anything, it's Sam Grubb Art, GRUBB Art on Instagram. And yeah, thanks all for joining. Hope it's been useful. Hope you can take some inspiration from it. I'm going to hopefully go and catch the delivery guy. So see you next time. Thank you.